I'm doing the second layer of latex on my board cap. As you can see, I'm using a really rough chipping brush and basically bringing the wet latex from the top of the head down to the side. And if I do enough layers like this, I'll build up a lovely mottled skin-like texture that's also really, this is the thickness of what I have. So it's mostly water, a bit of latex, a bit of acrylic paint. And here you can see there's just way too much going on there, so I'm stippling it as far down as I can go. It is really, really dry, and this is why I had trouble yesterday. As I was doing this, but with a thicker layer, i.e. less water, it was curing as I was stippling, which meant bits lifted off while other strips laid down. And at the time I was also really worried about these bubbles that were forming, but as you chip additionally, those bubbles disappear once your layer gets thin enough. So I'm working around the other side now to show the colour change already. Latex is white when it's still wet, so you can't really see how much paint has gone in. You can see the current texture, and as it's wet, it's mostly water that evaporates off, so any lumps at this stage or air bubbles will flatten, but I do want to get rid of as many of them as possible. But this will wind up being, well, you can see actually my head cast through the latex still. This will eventually be a really good base. It's also going to make it slightly stronger, again, dip, 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 than the board cap itself. And will make it easier to paint, because once I've got all the latex layers on, I'll powder it and, sorry, cameras are wobbly, wipe it with isopropyl alcohol to just give a slightly biting surface, and then, and only then, will I use the alcohol activated paint. The problem is if you use your paint this thickly, it can wind up streaky even with an airbrush, because the latex underneath is so smooth and so glossy, paint just basically does not stick to it like it does on skin. So try, if you can imagine this exchange here between board cap and where my eyebrows will be, painting from this stretched board cap onto my normal skin, the paint will wind up looking very, very different. So again, this stippling helps create a very subtle texture that helps paint hold on. I'll probably need another 2 layers like this, and as the new layers fully cure, I mean, I don't know how long this is going to take because it really is very muggy. And one last, I'm just going to do excess down here. This will also help prevent paint rubbing off onto my neck collar, because of course Ventress's collar comes all the way up to here. And this is my head cast, so I will be able to also paint, sorry, I think I breathed on the microphone there. I'll also be able to paint the designs onto her head. Been very kindly helped in that regard. I mean, I had screen caps of her head. There were a few that were very tricky to find, like where does the point of her back design finish. Found that out, which is nice. My head cast under here actually shows my head shape with a little bit of my hair in the back here. My hair's grown since I've had this. I've lost weight, so she's a bit chipmunk cheeked and pointy headed than I am at the moment. So I have to be very careful how I decide to paint my hair. I mean, for that technique, in case you couldn't see the whole brush, it is literally stipple, 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 stipple. You can probably hear how it picks up and deposits the same amount of latex each time, just in a slightly uneven pattern. So what I really noticed last night when I was using this chipping brush for the first time was there were really severe half curves from the bristles versus now where it's a little less, which is nice. So again, I'm stippling slightly around my forehead, in part because I'll be gluing a separate bald cap underneath, and it'll be about this line. That separate bald cap is to protect this bald cap. So that bald cap is like $5, the one that I'm going to use underneath, because I know how much I sweat in one of these things, and it literally shreds a bald cap in one wearing. So to save this bald cap, which was all of like 45 New Zealand dollars, so bald caps really are not cheap here, not for good quality ones, and I've got a Glatson which is 47, I think. So I'm saving that one for later. If we could buy liquid Glatson, I would be doing this very similar technique to make it a little bit more durable. You can also see on this head cast where my ears would be, which is great because it's going to help me do the tattoos along the side. And they are quite artistic and quite specific in how they do the tattoos on the Clone Wars. So they're no longer, as in the EU, symbols of her, shall we call them, victories. They are now patterns of her people, and she was born with them. So they're very much like in keeping with Mother Tells and the other Night Sisters. So that looks very textured, doesn't it? I can guarantee you once it's dry it won't be, but I do want that texture to be even all over. So I don't want one side to be smoother than the other, and I think that's going to do it. And just bring it a little bit further around. I had, as you can see with the front here, I had already done 2 different kinds of paint jobs. This is a very badly gone attempt to add latex. This is what I was talking about when it cured in places. It's very well stuck on now. That's what I was cleaning my head of entirely last night before it cured enough to actually bond to the surface. So this new layer and the layer that I did last night it'll bond very nicely. So if you have a very thin bald cap and you're doing a character like Ventress, I really recommend a chipping brush. I use bottled water mixed with pre-thickened latex, mainly because it's got less ammonia with it, and a little bit of Student's acrylic paint, which I don't have here unfortunately. And this is a wide dish so that I can really mix the paint, as you can see, and then seal it. And the latex eventually, once this process is finished, will peel out of this plastic because it's a I think it's a polyprop based plastic. Anyway, it doesn't hold glue at all. This is the paint that I use on the latex. It's a New Zealand brand, and I've probably just lost their full address there. It's $22 a bottle, so this is what I had put on and taken off, and that's mainly the paint with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol. Now, I made a mistake yesterday of airbrushing with this door closed, and I gave myself alcohol poisoning, basically, from airbrushing. The mist, when I turned around, the room was full of alcohol mist, and of course I was breathing that. So the next step I'm going to do, even though I'm not using alcohol at the moment, is I'm going to open the door. It's wet outside, so I'm not putting the board cap outside, but I am putting it in the drive, in the breeze. So I'll leave that for a couple of hours while I work on other things, and yeah, that's it.